So Wyrdhollow is finally here, and it's time for me to review one of the two new rival decks that complement this box. And I'm going to start with the Seismic Chock rival deck. And as always, I am using underworldsdb.com, which are all very fast in getting these cards out for us all to enjoy and discover, right? So huge kudos to them. And I'm going to start, as always, with the searches. Before we get going, make sure, as always, to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. First up, we have Burned Out. It's a search duel. You score it immediately after power step if you have no power cards in your hand and you have not discarded any power cards in this round. Cards that were played from your hand are not discarded. It says, I am not sure about this card. It seems like a bit of a trap and may kind of force you to just splash out cards that you could use in better ways than just to score this card. That being said, there are situations where you will be able to score this card very easily. I'm just a bit unsure about its merits. Next up, we have Exploit the Ley Lines. It's a duel you score immediately after a friendly wizard costs their third or subsequent spell in the same phase, and that fighter is in a hazard hex or on an objective token when they cast that spell. Hazard hex means cover hex, lethal hex, or nair hex, for the sake of terminology. So do I like this card? I'm not sure. Third or subsequent spell in the same phase with the same friendly wizard kind of forces you to activate the same fighter a lot of times, or at least include enough Gambit spells to render this objective successful. I'm not really sure about the merits of this card. Seems a bit of a tall order, and you also have to kind of cast them, you know, not just play the cards. You have to have successful attacks or Gambit castings, so yeah, it's a bit hard for one glory. Next up, we have Magisterial Might. It's scored middle of the power step if one or more friendly wizards each hold an objective in enemy territory, and one or more of those wizards have a wizard level of 2 or greater. This seems pretty easy though. So this is a surefire include for any wizard team, I reckon. Next up, we have Powering Up, which is worth 2 glory. It's scored immediately after a single friendly wizard is activated for a second or subsequent time in the same phase, easy enough, and that wizard was on the same objective token in enemy territory, or on 2 more of those times when they were activated. So kind of to reliably score this, you need to not be able to be pushed or be on guard or something. Yeah, it's weird. I think it's a bit of a lure, as most 2 glory searches are. If you end up on an objective token at the end of the first round, for example, then you kind of will want to start with guarding that fighter and then activating them again to score this card. It seems like a lot of setup for this card, so I probably wouldn't take it. Next up, we have Spark of Creation. It's also duel. Score immediately after a friendly fighter's spell attack action that took the target out of action, and the caster and or the enemy fighter were in hazard hex and or on a feature token. This seems like a very straightforward, easy enough card, right? Obviously matchup dependent, but still fairly doable. Then we have Unfortunate Focus, scored immediately after the third or subsequent time the same enemy fighter was chosen by and or declared as the target of your warband spell in this phase. So targeting the same fighter 3 times might be subpar gaming, generally speaking, and you also have to make sure that fighter is not taken out of action before the third time he's being chosen. So I think objective cards generally you will want to complement the stuff you want to be doing anyway, and this seems like you're very shoehorned into doing a very specific thing for this 1 glory, so I probably wouldn't take it. We have Claim the Prize. It's worth 3 glory, but it's not the third end phase card. Your warband holds each objective in 1 or more territories, including no one's territory, and your warband holds 2 or more objectives in 1 or more of those territories. So if you play kind of a defensive warband, say something like, I guess, if you want to have spell focus and maybe like the old Tzeentch warband maybe. Yeah, this could be doable, right? You have 5 fighters to start with, and one of them is resurrectable. And you could flip one of those objectives, you just hold 2. I think it's, for 3 glory, it's tempting. Then we have Manipulating the Realm Sphere. Scores in an phase if your warband casts more spells than each other warband in the preceding action phase. Very straightforward kind of card, and not all that fun, but it's very doable. 1 glory. Then we have Places of Power. It's an end phase card if each surviving friendly fighter is in hazard X or an objective. And there are 2 or more surviving friendly fighters. Each surviving friendly fighter is in a hazard X or an objective. I mean, for elite warbands like Stormsires or the new Domitans, it could be fairly easy to score this one, I think. Then we have Shape the Realm. Scores an end phase for 3 glory. Your warband holds 3 or more objectives, and 1 or more friendly wizards are each holding objective. So kind of like Supremacy with a twist there. It's dual order as always with Supremacy. So it's harder as well, so I'm not really sure about it. Then we have Sorceress, Treasure Hunter, scores an end phase if 1 or more friendly wizards are each holding an objective, and 1 or more of those wizards each have 3 or more upgrades. This is 2 glory, and for an elite team, this is Surefire included. Touching the Realm, scores an end phase if your warband holds 2 or more objectives, and 1 or more friendly wizards are each holding an objective. It's 1 glory, it's kind of in this kind of middle line here. So it's a boring card. But it's doable for sure, but I'm not too keen on it for 1 glory. So let's move over to the Ploys. Arcane Reach, +2 range to a maximum of 6. For the first range 2 plus spell attack action made by a friendly wizard in the next activation step. +2 range is tempting actually, but you also have to have line of sight obviously. Yeah, it's okay. Next up we have Celestial Conduits. You can reroll 1 magic dice in friendly wizard casting rolls if the caster is on a feature token. This effect persists until the end of the next activation step. So there's an interesting use for this, right? When you read it the first time, you might think that it's just for 1 attack, but if you play this in the power phase, you could potentially like pull off a couple of Gambit spells as well, and then move into your activation and have that reroll for the attack as well. So because it's just for casting rolls, not for spell attack actions. So very good. Then we have Celestial Surge. The next time a friendly wizard is holding an objective and attempts to cast a spell, that wizard has +1 wizard level until the casting sequence ends. This effect persists until a friendly wizard attempts to cast a spell or until the end of the power step. Very nice. Very nice. +1 dice is always useful. Topsy-turvy, pick 1 feature token within 5 hexes of a friendly wizard that is not in the same hex as an enemy fighter. Flip that feature token. The wording is a bit weird because it kind of sounds like that the friendly wizard shouldn't be in the same hex as the enemy fighter, but yeah, a feature token that is not occupied by an enemy fighter is what they mean. And then you can flip that token. Flipping tokens is always useful, I guess, so it's okay, and it's a good range as well. Then we have Abathot's Screaming Idols for 1 channel here. Easy casting. If cast, pick 1 feature token within 3 hexes of the caster, move that feature token 1 hex. After you've done so, if a fighter is on that feature token, deal 1 damage to that fighter. Moving around tokens is a strong mechanic. The ping damage could be icing on the cake. So it's an easy cast, useful spell. Channel Power. If the caster is holding an objective, this spell is cast automatically. Do not make a casting roll. Very cool. Gambit spell otherwise for 2 channels, so pretty hard. If cast, +1 wizard level to each surviving friendly wizards. This effect persists until your warband cast another spell or until the end of the round. So it's basically just +1 wizard level for 1 casting. Could be useful obviously, so it's basically +1 dice as well. Then we have Ayara's Resistance. It's cast on 1 focus, kind of middle of the ground accuracy there. If cast, +1 wound to friendly fighters while they are holding an objective. So a lot with hold objectives here, obviously. This effect persists until the end of the round or until another warband holds more objectives than your warbands. But it's only +1 to holding objectives, and you might not want to be standing around with those. And kind of ends as well. I'm not really sure about that. Could save you for a limited amount of time. Then we have Localized Quake, and this one I really like a lot. It's cost on 1 focus. If cast, choose 1 fighter on a feature token or in hazard hex within 3 hexes of the caster. Push the chosen fighter up to 3 hexes. So could push a friendly fighter 3 hexes or an enemy fighter 3 hexes with a fairly easy cast spell here. That's very, very good, very strong. Mind Wipe. Before the casting roll, pick channel or focus. That's the casting value of the spell, and depending on your choice, it has different effects. If you choose channel, you choose 1 enemy fighter within 4 hexes of the caster, and the chosen fighter cannot hold objectives until end of the round. If you chose focus, you pick 1 feature token within 4 hexes of the caster and move that feature token 1 hex. Both useful. Then we have Stir the Nest. It's cast on one channel. If cast, choose an enemy fighter within 4 hexes of the caster that's on a feature token, or in a hazard X, deal 1 damage to the chosen fighter. Yeah, fairly reliable ping damage, right? Good. Then we have the upgrades. First up, 4 upgrades without fighter restrictions. Aspect of Unseen Stalker lets you do an action to not be able to be targeted by ranged 3 attack actions or be dealt damage by spells until the end of the round, and then you discard the card. Not really too keen on this one. Then we have Quintox Static Rod for 2 range, 2 hammers, 2 damage, and this fighter cannot be driven back, and objective tokens within 3 hexes of this fighter cannot be moved, removed, or flipped. I mean, the second kind of effect is annoying, but it also hinders you from moving, removing, and flipping them, so it's very double-edged here. And a double-edged rod. I'm not sure. I mean, it takes a lot of brain power to make good use of this card. Sorcerer's Might. This fighter's spell attack actions have Grievous 1, but you can't affect spells with a damage characteristic of 3 or greater. I think generally speaking, Grievous isn't all that great for spells, because most spells are only cost with 2 dice, and Grievous only starts getting reliable enough to include when you have 3 or more dice. Then we have Temporarily Aligned. After an activation step in which this fighter made a charge action, push the fighter 1 hex. So basically you could move up next to an objective that's held by an enemy fighter, kill or push that fighter off that objective, and then after activation push yourself onto that objective, which could be very useful. So in the right circumstance, this is pretty good. Then we have Abathot's Adaptive Assault. It's range 3, cast on swirlies and does 1 damage, but it also has +1 damage if the target is inspired, and +1 damage if the target is on a feature token, so potentially 3 damage in a very niche situation. Yeah, it's a toss. Then we have Abathot's Predatory Animus. Innate channels while this fighter is holding an objective in enemy territory. It's a bit too niche, I think. Arcane Sensitivity. After this fighter casts a spell, push this fighter 1 hex. Yeah, it's pretty good. Pushing yourself is strong. Then we have Yara's Repelling Shield. This fighter cannot be driven back, and after an enemy fighter ends a move adjacent to this fighter, stagger that enemy fighter. It's okay. It's not amazing. Then we have Quintox Reactive Shunter. Reaction uses after this fighter is pushed by an enemy fighter. If they started that push on a feature token or in a hazard X, stagger this fighter, then push this fighter 1 hex. I think it's also very, very situational, right? And then we have Quintox Unseen Hand. Flick spell action. I'm not sure what flick means, but anyway. During this action, this fighter has line of sight to each enemy fighter. If cast, choose 1 enemy fighter within 6 hexes of the caster. Pick 1, push the chosen fighter 1 hex, or stagger the chosen fighter if the casting roll included 1 or more. Crits do both. Yeah, it's okay, right? Pushing enemies is strong. 6 hexes with a line of sight is very, very good. I'm not too keen on the upgrades, generally speaking here. The ploys are decent, I think, and the objectives are well balanced. It's kind of a middle of the road deck here. It's not overpowered and it's not useless. It needs to be play tested, obviously, right? But I think it's promising enough. I kind of like that it's not too strong. So make sure to try out this deck. I'm surely gonna do it myself. I don't know what team to do it, but I'm surely gonna do it. And let's see how it fares. Like you never know. The future will have the answer for us here. So make sure as always to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on this video. See you soon. Take care. Bye.